Hi there, and thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be looking at 5.6, graphing linear inequalities in two variables. You do need your worksheet handout for 5.6, so just make sure that you've grabbed that before you get started, because some of the questions in your notes will actually be questions that you complete on your worksheet. We are going to write a total of 6 things down today, so let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to look at is just tell whether the order pair is a solution of the inequality. These are pretty simple because all you're going to do is you're going to say, if we plug in these x and y values, does it make the sentence true? Okay, so you might have actually seen some of these before. So here's what that looks like. For letter A, instead of 2x, I would say 2 times negative 1. And then instead of saying plus y, I would say plus 9. And I'm going to see if that's less than negative 3. I know 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And negative 2 plus 9 is 7. And I'm just going to basically say, is 7 less than negative 3? That is no. So my answer would be no, not a solution for A. And then let's also go look over at letter B. Again, let's go ahead and plug in your x and y values. So I'll have 2 minus 3 times negative 2 is greater than or equal to 8. For the 3 minus negative 2, you could also say negative 3 minus negative 2. Either way you do it, it's going to change into a positive 6 regardless. I always like to look at the number, or the sentence, the symbol right in front of it. So negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. So 2 plus 6, is that greater than or equal to 8? Yes. So I would say yes, that is a solution for letter B. Okay? So you're going to try numbers 1 and 2 in your notes, which is also technically numbers 1 and 2 on your worksheet. So you're kind of just taking notes on your worksheet today. So if you look at your worksheet on numbers 1 and 2, these are the exact same questions. Let's go ahead and pause and try them on your worksheet, and once you're done, click play so you can check your work. Alright, so for number 1, I'm plugging in 3 for x and 2 for y. So I did 3 plus 2 and see if that's greater than 5. 5 is not greater than 5, so for number 1, we're going to say no. Number 2, if I plug in x for 5 and 3 for y, that's 5 minus 3, and see if that's greater than or equal to 2. I get 2. 2 is greater than or equal to 2, so I would say yes for number 2. So just make sure if you made a mistake to go back and double check it or fix it on your worksheet. The next thing we're going to talk about are your steps for how to graph. So this would probably need to be written in your notebook somewhere, unless you can find room on that worksheet, which I don't think you could. I would rather you just write this in your notebook. To graph your linear inequality, there are 3 steps, okay? And normally, it's basically just like graphing slope-intercept form. Sorry for that interruption. But the only difference here is your boundary line. Your boundary line is going to be a little bit different for inequalities. You're going to use a dashed line for less than or greater than, and you'll use a solid line for less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Once you're done, you're going to test a point that's not on the boundary line, so somewhere either below it or above it, to see if it makes a solution. And if it is a solution, you're going to shade that half plane, that section of the point. If it doesn't make the solution, you shade the plane that does not contain that point. So let's go ahead and take time now to pause right here and write our 3 steps down. Again, these steps might not make so much sense right now, but I'm going to show you what those look like on the next slide. So let's go ahead and pause, write them down, and then once you're ready to go on, click play. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to graph y is less than or equal to 2. The one thing I do need to remember is that because it's less than or equal to, this one's going to be a solid line. Remember, if it were just less than, I would have like a dashed line like this, okay? And I'll show you both ways. Y is less than or equal to 2 will be 2 on the y-axis, so there's my point. And since it's less than or equal to, this is all I'm going to graph. I'm just going to graph a straight dotted line. Then it says for step 2 to pick a point that's either above or below. Normally, if you just pick 0, 0, that's probably the easiest point you could choose. So that kind of eliminates everything. So I can only actually plug in y here. So I'm going to plug in 0. Is 0 less than or equal to 2? Yes, it is. So I'm going to shade where that includes that point. So I'm going to shade everything below that y is less than or equal to line. Okay? So everything here these are all of my solutions. Because it's less than or equal to 2, I technically could also choose a solution that's on this line here. So I could also say that like y is equal to, or x is equal to 2, 2, or my point 2, 2. Because it's on that line, it can include that inequality, similar to what we did before with inequalities in chapters 2. Here's another one. It says graph negative x plus 2y is greater than 2. This one is a little bit different because it's not in slope-intercept form. So what I would do first is get y by itself. So I'm going to add x to both sides. So I would have 2y is greater than x plus 2. And then I'm going to get y by itself. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. So I get y is greater than 1/2 x plus 1. Notice I use the greater than symbol, so that's going to be a dashed line. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is find my y-intercept, which is plus 1, right up here on the y-axis. And then my rise over run will be rise 1, run 2. Rise 1, run 2. Rise 1, run 2. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here. Down 1, run 2. Down 1, run 2. Okay, just to get a few points on there. Okay, and then I do need to make my line. A lot of people make this mistake and because they just use habit of continuing to do that solid line, but we need to use a dashed line. So I usually just go in between points and make little dashes or dots, just like this. That means things on this line are not included in the solution. Okay, my next step is step 2, which is to pick a point either above or below. Again, I just like choosing 0, 0, so I'm going to plug in 0, 0 to this equation. So 0 is greater than 1/2 times 0 plus 1. 0 is greater than 0 plus 1, which is 1. This is not true. So I do not shade in the part that contains 0, 0. I shade in the other side that wouldn't contain 0, 0. So I shade in everything up here. Okay. Also note it says y is greater than, so you're basically shading things that are greater than this line, so things that are above this line. Does that make sense? It'll be vice versa if you do x's. Everything to the left of x would always be less than, everything to the right of x would always be greater than. So now that I've taken some time to do those, go ahead and try the next few on your own. This is actually number 7 on your worksheet, so you do need to find number 7 on your worksheet and graph it on that graph paper. And once you're done, click play so you can check your work. So let's go ahead and pause here. All right, y is less than 4. That means I'm going to go up to y is equal to 4. Plot my dot, and this is a dashed line. So you should have had a dashed or dotted line. If you just want to do dots, I think sometimes dots are a little bit easier. Okay, just make sure it's not solid. And then you want to make sure that is less than 4. If I plug in 0, 0, 0 is less than 4. So everything that contains 0, 0 I would shade in. So you needed to shade below it. Okay. The next one, you have this one. It is number 16 on your worksheet. So go ahead and look at number 16. Maybe write it in slope-intercept form. So bring that x over on the other side. And then once you're done, click play. I'm going to go ahead and pause and get my graph ready here. All right, so to rewrite it, I first looked at it like this. Y is greater than or equal to negative x minus 3. Once I have that, then I'm ready to start graphing. So my my intercept for the y-axis is at negative 3. So I'm going to go down to 3 and plot my point. And then my rise over run is negative 1, 1. So I'm going to go down 1, run 1. Down, run, down, run. And same thing over here. Just do a few points there. Okay, this one will be a solid line because it's greater than or equal to. And then I'm going to test a point. Again, I'm going to test 0, 0. 0 can't be negative, but I'll still put a negative there, whatever. Okay, so the 0 is greater than or equal to negative 3. That is true. So everything that the plane that contains, or the half plane that contains 0, 0, I would plot or shade. Last one, it says you can spend at most $10 on grapes and apples for a fruit salad. So at most would mean less than or equal to. Grapes cost $2.50 per pound and apples cost $1 per pound. Write a graph of the inequality that represents the amounts of grapes and apples that you can buy. Okay. I would maybe just say grapes are X and apples are Y to help you. Let's go ahead and pause here. This one's not on your worksheet, so you do want to do this one on your notebook. And then maybe just sketch your graph once you're ready to graph. And then let's go ahead and pause here so you can try it on your own. And once you're done, click play. All right, at most $10 means less than or equal to $10. Grapes cost $2.50 per pound, so that's 250x plus 1y, or just y. And then I'm going to go ahead and write this in a format so that I can graph it. So I'm just going to subtract 250 from both sides. When I do this, I do need to make sure that I have slope-intercept form. So I'm actually going to change 250 into 5 halves so that I can show that rise over run, and it's negative 5 halves, and then plus 10. So there's my inequality. Now I'm ready to graph it. So if I do plus 10, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up here. And then I'm going to go down 5 over 2. And then again. Okay, this one is a solid line. So my graph would be a negative correlation, or negative, because the more I spend, the less money I have. And then it says, identify and interpret 2 solutions of the inequality. Well, first I need to figure out which side I can plug this in on, or which side I can shade. So I'm going to plug in my 0, 0. 0 is less than or equal to 10, so I would shade in this point, or this side. So identifying and interpret 2 solutions of the inequality, which means I can find anything on this shaded part or on the line because it's less than or equal to. So I can maybe say that I can get 1 grape and 1 apple. That's a safe one. I might even go to say that I could get 2 grapes and 5 apples. This one is actually on the line, and that is okay because, once again, it is less than or equal to. And you can have something that includes that on the line. So these are just 2 options for me that I can have when I go and try to spend at most $10 here. Okay? That is going to conclude our notes today. So thanks so much for tuning in for lesson 5.6. And we will catch you next time.